Really.
It is. I like all of this.
You're going to be a star. You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics or perhaps public policy this evening. Because we have as our guest somebody who, well, she grew up, in a sense, in a politician's family. At least when she was 9, she was going out to the labor union halls with her dad, who was campaigning,
right.
And that continued. And now we're going back to, I guess, the early 60s, mid-50s.
Right.
So the Eisenhower years.
Right.
And, we continue doing that. And then, she goes to college. Where'd you go as an undergrad?
I went to Catholic University in Washington, D.C.
That's right. And then she went to law school at DePaul.
Right.
Gets her law degree and practiced law, sort of storefront type thing.
Right, you forgot the part where I was the cherry blossom princess in Washington.
A cherry blossom princess.
It's the funniest thing.
You'll see in a minute. See, they can't see you yet because we're holding you back because we want the suspense to mount. But when you see,
thank God I didn't have to wear a bathing suit.
She looks great in a bathing suit. I saw her just the other day in a bathing suit, and she could win the current election if she'd go out there and wear a bathing suit.
No strangers who are seeing this body, believe me.
Okay, then along the way, she runs for Secretary of State. Before that, she's elected to the Water Reclamation Board. You can tell she has politics in her blood. She's going to deny this, but she does. She has politics in her blood. She knows how to win. Had a little mishap when she ran for Secretary of State. We won't go into that, but she had a good recovery.
It was a great learning experience, a teaching moment.
Teaching moment. We'll come back to that. Then she becomes clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County. A lot of C's in that name.
Yes.
And she holds that position until 2098. In 98 she runs. 98 she runs for. It is for Cook County Board President.
And also in 94.
And she has, and you ran for that in 94, but as a Democrat in 94, in the Democratic primary against John Stroger.
And Maria Pappas.
But in 98 she becomes something she said she is. She's not really partisan, so she didn't have any trouble running as a Republican because she is not about partisan politics, and that ties in with her current position.
I don't know about, at that point I was about blood and guts politics.
Doing what you could for the people.
Well, there were changes that were necessary.
Let me interrupt just because haven't shown the people who you are yet, and I don't want to.
I'm still a mystery.
It's still a mystery, and I want them to see soon. So tonight's guest is running. She has now been a circuit court judge. She has been an appellate judge in the state of Illinois judicial system. She is running. We're taping this show on February 19th, the year 2012, and in just about 30 days or so, you will have an opportunity to vote in the Democratic primary if you're living in Cook County. And you will be able to vote, and people haven't heard a lot about this, for a Supreme Court judge, and there's going to be a contested primary of at least 4 candidates. And so our guest tonight is Aurelia Pucinski. And there we go. See, just picture her in a bathing suit. She'd be a knockout.
Please
She is so shy, though, she won't, Anyway, so Aurelia is running for state Supreme Court judge. And that's what we say, not justice, but judge. There's only one justice on that court, and that's the Chief Justice.
According to the Illinois Constitution, there's one justice. That's a Supreme Court justice, the Chief Justice. Okay, and all the rest of us are judges, although people like to call us justice. And I'm not sure that many of my colleagues would fight that if they were called justice, so it's okay.
But our guest, Aurelia Pucinski, she has something to say about this because in this race, people are wondering, is it political or is it going to be decided on who would make the best judge on the state Supreme Court?
Should be who'd be best.
Mary Jane Tice is currently on the Supreme Court, and she is running.
She's in the interim appointment, yes.
Interim appointment, so she's not incumbent.
No.
But she has an interim appointment, basically from the person who she replaced.
That's right.
Just Judge Fitzgerald.
That's right.
Who was on the Supreme Court.
Fabulous.
The judge, when he goes off, as he did, he essentially gets his pick. It's a vote of the 7 judges, but essentially they defer to the person who's being replaced.
That's the pattern.
So he picked Mary Jane Tice.
Right.
And why did he pick Mary Jane Tice?
Well, they had worked together in the criminal courts building for a long time, and I believe, someone told me, although I don't know this for a fact, that he was a friend of her father's.
And she had been a long-time appellate judge, longer than you've been, right?
Oh, yes.
Much longer.
Yes.
Before that, she'd been a circuit court judge.
Yes, although I'm not sure she's ever been in this hotly contested election, so that'll be fun to see.
Well, nobody, unless you faced Aurelia Pucinski. Can we call you Ori? It's a lot easier.
I actually answer, Jeff, to anything but Toots, so people call me all sorts of stuff.
Don't give me any guff. If I want to call you Toots, no, okay. So Ori, you're running against Mary Jane Tice.
No, Mary Jane Tice, Joy Cunningham, Tom Flanagan, and I are all professionals running for the same job. There's one job, one vacancy. We're not running against each other. It's just the nature of the Constitution. There's a vacancy.
4 people are competing in a race. If 4 people were running in a track in a 100-yard dash, we wouldn't say you're not running against any of them. You're all running against each other, right?
We are running for a job.
All right, that's how you want to define it.
That's how I always define it.
Now, there's a saying, and you may have heard this, in politics you punish your enemies and you reward your friends. Have you ever heard that saying?
I've heard other people say that.
Who would be some of those people who've said it?
I've heard other people say it, but
Rahm Emanuel, did you ever hear Mayor Rahm Emanuel say that?
I don't really care.
Yeah, but he did. He was noted for that. Let me go back. When he was a congressman, he was speaking to a women's power group in 2004, I believe, circa 2004, and that was the headline in Cranes. Right. Rahm Emanuel says, in politics, we punish our enemies and we reward our friends. Maybe he said we reward our friends and punish our enemies.
Oh, wait, I'm going to stop you right there. This is what I was taught by my father. He would say,
Pucinski,
right, he would say,
congressman from 58 to 72.
Yes, fabulous, fabulous legislator, great congressman,
Prior
wonderful
to that,
alderman,
he was a Chicago alderman.
and terrific dad, terrific dad. He would say, life's too long. And people would stop and say, Roman, you mean life's too short? And he'd say, no, I mean life's too long. I am not going to carry a grudge. Not for 5 minutes, not for 5 days, not for 5 years, not for 50 years. I'm not going to do it. And he didn't, and he taught me not to, and I don't. I don't count the favors that I do for people, and I don't carry grudges. I refuse to, because life is too fluid.
Is that how you won the circuit court clerk position? Is that how you won? By being just totally nice to everybody? I don't count, I don't look for your favors. You want to ask people to vote for you.
Listen, I'm going to tell you.
Even though you help them, you didn't remind them that you had helped them before.
You know how I won the circuit?
You just said be selfless.
In 1988, Harold Washington endorsed me, along with George Dunn and many fine people in the Democratic Party, voters and leaders, to run against Jane Byrne in the Democratic primary, and then Ed Verdoliak in the as a Republican in the general election. And that was a campaign.
What was that?
Let me tell you, that was a campaign.
When was that?
1988.
And that was for?
For clerk of the court. Jane Byrne was trying to make her comeback so that she could run for mayor.
You beat Jane in the primary.
I beat her in the primary. And then I beat Ed Verdoliak in the general election in that same year.
Fast Eddie, as they said.
Fabulous campaign.
Do you know Fast Eddie?
I know him. Yes, he's always been a gentleman to me. It was a great campaign, but...
Is he going to be supporting you in this race? Would you like his support?
I have no clue what he's going to do in this race.
Would you like his support?
You know what? Leave the man alone. Right. He's got his own problems.
He's got his own problems. He's a University of Chicago Law School grad, I think.
He's got his own problems.
I mean, if you're a University of Chicago Law School grad, you got to be okay, right?
You know what? I wish them both well. I don't wish Jane Byrne any harm. I don't wish Ed Verdoliak any harm.
You're not asking for her support either?
You know what? I am asking for the votes of people in my race for Supreme Court.
Are you asking Rahm Emanuel to support you? Did you ever think of doing that?
No.
No.
No, and for a very good reason.
Would you like to have Rahm support you?
I would. No, and I'll tell you.
Is Rahm supporting Mary Jane Tice?
That's irrelevant for what I'm going to say right now.
It's relevant to our viewers. They want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
Let me start out with my position, and then we can segue into what is reported to be his position.
Okay.
But I can't speak for him. You'll have to ask him.
What's your position?
My position is that in the history of the city of Chicago, at least in modern times, say since 1950, 55, 60, the last 40 years, 50 years, I do not remember a mayor of the city of Chicago personally being involved and invested in the election of a Supreme Court justice. Why?
Not Richard J. Daley?
No.
Not Richard M. Daley?
No. And you know why? Because the city of Chicago is involved in so much litigation that it creates the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Because if you have the Supreme Court judge in your pocket, so to speak, a state Supreme Court judge.
I never used the word pocket.
But if that were so perceived, that would be an appearance of impropriety, right?
I think
and that's what judges avoid, the appearance of impropriety.
Judges should avoid it, do avoid it. I think other elected officials avoid it.
So you're saying Mary Jane Tice should
I didn't say anything.
She should say to Rahm, look, I don't want your money. I don't want your money of your friends. I don't want you calling people up and saying, go give money to this woman.
I can't give
advice
that would
be a conflict.
I'm not giving advice to Mary Jane Tice.
But if you were, wouldn't you give that advice?
I am running my campaign. I'm not going to let somebody else run my campaign. I'm going to run my campaign. So
she's getting all this money from a lot of friends of Rahm Emanuel. That's what people are saying.
That's what people are saying.
Can we get an answer? Do you think that's happening?
I believe that's happening, yes. Okay. It's reported.
How much money? Like oodles of money? She's looking at raising $2 million, you think?
$1.5 million, I think, was her goal.
And a lot of that's going to come from friends of Rahm?
I believe that that's true. That's what I've been told. I know that Kirkland and Ellis gave her $60,000. Personally, I think that's a mistake.
Why are people like Kirkland and Ellis giving money? Why do you think that would be a reason?
Well, she says it's because her daughter works there.
And you say?
I've been told that it's actually because the mayor's general counsel, corporation counsel,
what's his name?
Is former partner Kirkland and Ellis, but I'm not at their table. I'm not at their desk. I don't sit around their coffee table. I'm not at their meetings. I don't know.
You wash my back, I'll wash yours. Is that what they say in Chicago?
You know what, Jeff? She's going to run her campaign. God bless. Joy is going to run her campaign. God bless. Tom Flanagan is going to run his campaign.
Joy's going to raise about $800,000.
Yeah,
you're saying,
give or take.
Mary Jane's going to raise about $1.5 million.
Give or take.
And Ori's going to raise what?
My goal is 150.
150.
150.
So you're saying 150K can beat 1.5 million?
Wait.
That's you're being outspent 10 to 1.
Wait. You're forgetting. I have probably 85% name recognition based on the past 30 years of working in this community.
Everybody knows. So people watching this, they see Aurelia Pucinski and they say, hey, didn't she win a cherry blossom contest?
At least I know who that person is.
Yeah.
So I do not have to buy name recognition.
What do they know about you, the people out there?
I hope they know that I have been an effective, efficient, honest, and hardworking elected official. And that I bring those same values.
Does that make a state Supreme Court judge?
Well, you need those things to be a good Supreme Court justice. You also need to be a good lawyer. I am a good lawyer.
Are you a good judge?
Here, I can tell you.
Are you a good judge on the appellate court?
Yes, and I can tell you how I know that.
What's your biggest caller? Like if you were a policeman, they say, what's your biggest caller? So your biggest caller as being an appellate judge would be, what's your biggest case you handled?
No, that's not it. Here's how I know that I can do a good job. Because on every single opinion and order that I've written while I've been on the appellate court, everyone except one case has been unanimous. That means 2 of my well-respected colleagues have agreed with me on my decision-making, on my reasoning, on my research, on my writing. So if they didn't agree with me, we'd have dissents all over the place, or I'd be the dissenting view. But in fact, my decisions are unanimous, and that tells me that people agree with what I'm doing on the court. And I'm happy with that. I work very hard to write those opinions.
Have you been reversed by the state Supreme
Only
Court?
one of my cases has been appealed. It's still on appeal. I don't know what will happen.
Never been appealed, and the one that is, we haven't seen. So you can't really tell
but
whether,
when I was
whether the Supremes, would we refer to the Illinois Supreme Court as the Supremes?
Well, you could.
Remember Diana Ross in the Supremes?
It would be okay with me. I don't know if
you remember Diana Ross in the Supremes?
I do.
You would like to be one of the Supremes?
I would like to be a justice on the Illinois Supreme Court. And if somebody wants to call me one of the Supremes, I will not complain about it. Yeah. But when I was on the trial level, I was only appealed 4 times, and I was never reversed. So somebody must think I'm doing something right. And I think I'm doing something right, and I work hard. People recognize it. But more importantly...
Why do people care? Why do the people care who's on the Illinois State Supreme Court?
Because the Supreme Court makes
probably,
decisions about important issues.
Everybody in Cook County can vote for this position.
Yes.
A lot of people haven't heard much about it. If you're voting in the Democratic primary. You're running in the Democratic primary.
Anybody who takes a Democratic ballot.
We didn't say that. If you see the graphic on there, it doesn't say a D. Did we make a mistake? Should it say Aurelia Pucinski, D for Democrat?
It would be great, but you know what? People who take a Democratic ballot will see my name on the ballot. Hopefully they'll vote for me, Aurelia Pucinski.
You are a Democrat.
I'm running on the Democratic primary.
Your dad was a moderate Democrat.
He was.
Are you a moderate Democrat?
I have always called myself a moderate Democrat.
Would you welcome independent support?
Actually.
Do you think you would welcome independent support?
I do get independent support. I'm happy to have independent support.
What about Republicans? Would you welcome Republicans supporting you?
Well, it's unlikely to me in this year
that
Republicans are going to be taking Democratic ballots
because
when all the actions in the Republican primary, right. But I do want to tell you one thing. You mentioned that the election is on March 20th. Early voting actually starts February 27th. So
1 week from the time we're taping this on the 19th, so in a week. And people will be watching this in the suburbs starting on the 26th, so they'll already be voting.
Right. If they're going for early voting, you know, I hope they remember that they saw me on the show. That'd be great.
And they know your views. They know what you think, for instance, about capital punishment. They'd want to know that because you're going to be the state Supreme Court judge. Shouldn't you let them know? What do you think?
Actually,
there was a moratorium. No, there's actually capital punishment has been banned now in the state of Illinois. Would something come up as to the constitutionality of that law, possibly? I mean, it's constitutional for them to ban it, right? So it's not going to come up. So you can tell us.
I suppose it could. And let me just tell you, as I often have to tell people, that judges, and especially candidates for judges, are not allowed to articulate a position on an issue that might come before them in court. And of course, I'm used to blood and guts politics, so it makes me crazy.
People go and get
but
confirmed
on the other
for
hand,
the
we're
US
not
Supreme
allowed to
Court.
say that.
For the U.S. Supreme Court, they get confirmed, and they say they can't talk about something that might come up before them,
court, right.
but they can give their views in general about doctrines. how they've evolved. They can't give their views about philosophy.
Right.
They may even say what they think about Griswold. Do you remember the Griswold case?
Here's what I can tell you.
Do you know what the Griswold case is?
Here's what I can tell you. Here's what I'm most often asked. Will you be an activist judge or not? Activist. And by activist, most people explain that as a judge who will look at a law and say, oh, I don't like this law. I'm going to do it my own way. I do not think that judges can do that or should do that. And so if that's the definition of activist judge, then no, I would not do that. However, I do think it's important for judges at every level, particularly at the Supreme Court, since it has an administrative responsibility for the court system throughout Illinois, to be activist in terms of the process. Is the process fair for every litigant that comes into the court system? No matter what your economic background, racial background, gender background, no matter where you are, no matter what kind of case you have, is the system fair? And I think that there are pockets that create an unfair playing field, an unlevel playing field, and it's the Supreme Court's responsibility to straighten that out. And that's one of the reasons I'm running, is because I like that administrative piece of it.
But you should know something about the law if you're going to be judge of
Absolutely.
the Illinois Supreme Court.
I've been practicing law since 1976.
Does the U.S. Constitution matter to you, or is it just the state?
Of course it does. The Chicago Bar Association, the Cook County Bar Association found me qualified to be on the Supreme Court. I'm very happy about that.
What does the Second Amendment say of the U.S. Constitution?
That citizens have the right to bear arms. In a militia has the right to bear arms.
In a militia? A well-regulated militia
has
being
a right
necessary to the state. So it doesn't say just the militia.
No, it doesn't.
It says people have the right to bear arms.
Right.
Congress shall pass no law that infringes on that right.
Right.
That's pretty much what it says.
That's pretty much Congress. But the Constitution also says the House of Representatives should pass a budget, and they haven't been able to do that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of problems with the Constitution.
In the city of Chicago, for a long time, we had a ban on the possession of handguns in the city of Chicago, except for Daley's guard. He could carry one, okay? But if I walked around as a citizen in Chicago, I can't. Not walked around if I was in my house. A lot of people said it would be a good idea for self-defense.
A lot of people
have said that. What does Aurelia Pucinski say? Do you think that law should not have been passed?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that question.
Really?
Because
I mean, the Supreme Court's already ruled on that. The U.S. Supreme.
But the Illinois legislature can still pass laws. The city of Chicago can still pass laws that try to.
They can't squarely go against
get around.
That. They would then become sort of activist legislators, shouldn't they?
I
think they should do that.
I have.
Well, you want to talk about your philosophy. Is your philosophy? Forget the law.
Right.
Your philosophy. People who are sitting in a home that may be in a relatively unsafe area, do you think as a matter of philosophy, forget the law, as a matter of philosophy, do you think it might make sense that they could own a gun, possess a gun to defend themselves? Forget the law. Say you were a legislator. Say you were a legislator, just hypothetically.
Nope.
You're not going to answer that question?
No, I'll tell you.
What if I said Mary Jane Tice answered that question then? Would you say you should answer it?
Let her answer it. Let her answer it.
Mary Jane does her campaign, you're doing yours. Joy Cunningham does her campaign.
I will tell you that me personally, I don't have a gun in my house because I'd probably kill myself before I killed anybody else.
Well, you could get trained. Have you ever thought of getting trained? Go over to a training place and you shouldn't be afraid of guns. Are you afraid of guns?
I think that there are other things that I can do to keep myself safe.
Well, say a person's thinking, look.
But guns really is not the issue in this campaign.
Say you're a doctor in Illinois, and you're saying, you know what, I can't stay in the state much longer because medical malpractice rewards are getting out of hand. They've been getting out for decades, so I'm going to go practice in Texas.
Or Wisconsin.
Unless the legislature could pass a law that had caps. They passed a law that had caps, and now if only the Illinois Supreme Court would say it's constitutional, which they didn't. As a matter of policy, do you think we should have caps on malpractice?
I can't answer that question.
Do I know that?
You know I can't answer that question because
what would happen to you? Would you be stricken? Would your candidacy as a state Supreme Court judge be stricken if you answered that question?
But
as to the general philosophy?
If I violated the canons of ethics.
No, but just the philosophy. I'm not saying whether it was a good decision.
Here, let me tell you why this is a good thing to do. Why it is a good rule for judge candidates and judges not to telegraph their position on an issue that could come before them. Because if you're a litigant, you want to come to a court, and if I'm the judge, you want to know, I don't have a preconceived idea about this issue.
You should tell us, and you should say, but I can change
that's your opinion.
I could change my preconceived notion.
Because
it doesn't mean you wouldn't change it.
No.
Everybody,
no,
how could you be a thinking person and not have a position on this?
Jeff.
As you said, look at the people who come before the Senate for the U.S. Supreme Court and say, oh, I really didn't know about that. I don't know about Roe v. Wade. Would you want a person like that sitting on the Supreme Court?
You're asking the wrong set of questions.
Look,
what you're asking.
Fortunately, this is the kind of forum in which I get to ask the questions. You have to give the answers.
That may be
you ever
true.
use that as a lawyer when some witness turns on you and starts asking you questions?
But a good lawyer
It's a great
will,
line. It's a great line. Fortunately, sir, this is the kind of forum in which I get to ask the questions and you have to give the answers.
That may be.
It works here too.
But I don't have to answer every question that you ask me if it's the wrong question.
Well, tell me this.
And here's the right question. The right question is, would you, Judge Pucinski, take every single case that is in front of you as a brand new case with a brand new set of facts and pay attention to what the litigants are telling you?
Everybody would say that.
And
Mary
of course,
Jane Tice would say
do.
that, and Joy Cunningham would say that,
That's
and Tom Flanagan would say that.
That's a good standard.
And the voters would be sitting there saying, now how do I choose?
No, that's
because
a good
they've all
standard.
answered that. So how are they going to discriminate in the best sense of the word? How are they going to discern who would make the best judge?
Well,
who should they vote for? Because they're all saying the same thing on that score.
Well, I don't know if they are.
They are.
Here,
trust me.
I think that one way people can separate me from the other three is because they are familiar with the record of public service that I have and the fact that I have been out in communities working with real people and that I have a real grip on this community.
So you're saying Mary Jane Tice has been too cloistered, is that what you're saying? She's been a judge, she hasn't been out in the communities. You've been out in the communities. You've been politicking. has Mary Jane ever
politicking?
Has she ever won an office other than run for judge?
No, wait a minute. There is a significant difference between being a public service and being in
You're not a politician? You're not a politician? How could you win that?
I have been blessed to be a public servant. I have been blessed to be welcome in many communities and to talk to lots of different people, to serve lots of different interests in this community, to be familiar with a lot of different kinds of things that go on in the community. I think that makes me a better judge.
But you're not
it's made me a better public service.
Judge. That's one thing that might distinguish you. You do not want to have an evolving Constitution. You want to work with the Constitution that's before you. You want to interpret the Constitution, interpret statutes.
Yes.
You don't want to legislate. That's the legislature's job.
Right. But
that might, do you know?
Here's one thing the Supreme Court.
Do you know if Mary Jane wants to legislate?
I have no clue. But here's one thing.
Does she want to bend the law toward her friend, Rahm Emanuel?
I cannot speak for Mary Jane, and I won't speak for her. I refuse to.
But implicitly, you're criticized for taking that kind of money.
Let her get her own half hour.
You're only taking $500. You're taking only $500 a contribution. If I wanted to reach in my pocket and write you a check for $2,000, you'd say no. You wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't. 500.
Forget that I'm a journalist, so I wouldn't do that.
500.
If I were Joe Blow, you wouldn't take it.
500, and no money from appellate lawyers, because I think it creates that conflict of interest. But here,
what about Mary Jane? Is she doing that? Is she taking money from appellate lawyers?
Your first question in this series of questions was whether or not it's a good idea to be out in the community as opposed to being a judge for a long time. Obviously my own feeling is it makes me a better judge to have been out in the community, meeting real people, talking to real people, letting them ask me questions, asking them questions, getting feedback. It makes me a better judge. If I had spent the past 27 years of my life in an office surrounded by law books, only talking to lawyers, it would have made me insane. I like talking to real people.
You're saying lawyers aren't real people?
I like talking to people who have normal, real lives, who do real jobs.
Lawyers don't have normal, real lives? What is this?
I think probably some of them
First we kill all the lawyers? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. But I think there is a tendency to be sort of wrapped up in the system, in the process, that you forget there's a real world out there, and you forget that there are real tensions out there, and that there are real people out there that have real problems. Think about it for a minute. I don't care whether somebody comes into your courtroom with a traffic case or a divorce case or a probate case or an airplane crash. For that person at that moment, it is a crisis in their life. They're nervous, they're worried, there's a lot at stake.
So you're saying you're giving them 1,000% honesty is what you're saying.
And
you will look at this dispassionately, you will not be prejudiced, you will not have a view before they come in.
People understand my entire career I've been independent.
And yet you've been informed by talking to real people.
Right.
So that's what distinguishes you.
And I think that makes a difference. People know I'm independent. There's hardly any doubt about that.
Are you a Democrat? Or are you a Republican?
I am a basic.
You ran as a Republican.
I am a basic Democrat. But when I ran as a Republican, wait a minute, let me just tell you something. Even when I ran as a Republican, I made it very clear that I was a moderate Republican, and where the blurry line is, I don't really know. But in a Supreme Court race, I've already gone on record as saying for Supreme Court, I don't think that it should be partisan at all.
We shouldn't have a Democrat or Republican by your name. You should be running as a nonpartisan race. Right.
And that's because people should know that there's no partisan platform, partisan angling, partisan anything going on.
You did seek the slating, didn't you?
No,
of the Cook County Democratic Party?
For Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Never. No,
but you've sought it before for other things. Did
absolutely.
you seek it for Circuit Court Judge?
In my sub-circuit.
You did seek the slating there.
Yeah.
There you're willing to take it.
Actually, what I did was I went and I said, if you endorse me, that's fine, but if you don't endorse me, I'm running anyhow. So I don't know whether that's seeking endorsement or not, because I'm pretty sure they're not going to endorse me.
So this time you say, don't endorse. They went ahead and endorsed. You went to talk to them, telling them not to endorse. Them being the slating committee.
And I have told my...
The thing that's run by Ed Burke, right? Ed Burke kind of picks the judges in town,
Well, he's
right?
not the chairman of the party. Joe Berrios is the chairman of the party.
No, but what's that? He's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
Well, this is still Joe Berrios is still the county chairman.
I think between us girls,
fabulous
Ed Burke
to have
picks the judges.
Joe Berrios worrying about who's the judges.
Between us girls, isn't it Ed Burke who picks the judges mostly?
No, it's all the 80 committeemen, 50 from the city, 30 from the townships.
Is Alderman Ed Burke, chairman of the Finance Committee, one of the most powerful Democrats in the state of Illinois? Is he backing Joy Cunningham here?
I have not heard that he's backing anybody.
Because Rahm's backing
I don't
Mary
know.
Jane?
You're telling me that he is, and I don't.
I'm not telling you.
That.
I'm just asking you a question.
I don't believe he's backing anybody.
I ask the questions here. I don't give the answers. Yeah.
But I don't have to answer the question you pose.
Okay.
And I do not have any reason to believe that Ed Burke is backing Joy Cunningham or anyone else in this race.
So I'm reading the paper the other day. We're taping this on February 19th.
Right.
There's a state Supreme Court decision, and it says, the upshot is, according to the Chicago public school system, which was battling the Chicago Teachers Union in this case, they said this is a great decision. It empowers principals. They can decide who's going to be teaching. And the Chicago Teachers Union said, this is a terrible decision. It says we can't pick have the most qualified people teaching in our schools.
Right.
What do you say?
I say they both have great spin machines.
How can they be so different if there's only one opinion?
There's one opinion.
You're not saying that Becky Carroll, who's the spokesperson for the CPS, or the spokesperson or the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, Karen Lewis, you're not saying Carroll or Lewis would distort things, would you?
It's really hard to imagine a situation in which everybody is going to agree, wow, that's a great decision. I know
with that said,
if the Supreme Court says it's the decision, then of course I'm bound by it as a justice of the Illinois Appellate Court.
And I'm unencumbered by the
but
facts.
But I
haven't read that opinion, but it sounds like what it says based on the description.
I haven't read the opinion either.
So you're unencumbered.
Nor did I read the briefs.
But it sounds
Nor did I listen to oral arguments.
It sounds like the opinion said because of the reform in 1995 that gave a lot of power to the city over the Chicago public schools, they should be allowed in this case to take tenured teachers who were dismissed for budgetary reasons and not hire them back first. It sounds like that's what the court's saying. Sound to you like that?
I am not going to discuss that case. I haven't read the briefs. I didn't read the opinion. And there are always going to be differences of opinion about how to interpret a case.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest,
Thank you.
Aurelia Pucinski, who's running in the Democratic primary. She is running on March 20th. She is running to become a state Supreme Court judge. There are only 7 of them.
Right.
Okay, so the 7th has a vacancy. She is running basically to be in the 1st district. That is 3 of the state Supreme Court judges come from Cook County. That's right. She would be the 3rd, 3 from others around, the other 4 from around the country, around the state.
Right.
Currently, their makeup is 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans. And if a Republican runs in this race, and I think one will, and if that
there is a Republican in November.
In November,
right?
Who is that going to be? Riley, is that his name?
Jim Riley.
Yeah, and if he wins, then the majority would turn to 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats.
And isn't that a shame? See, that's what's wrong with it.
Would that matter? Would that matter to you?
What's wrong with
it be bad or
is
good?
The Supreme Court should not have partisan labels.
Well, med-mal caps would almost surely be allowed under that circumstance. Would that be okay? Would medical malpractice rates go down if that happened?
People need to vote for the person.